it's going to be worse. Lord, we're thankful for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to come out today to do business with like the world. We pray that you'll just be with each one as they arrive home tonight. Lord, watch over them, keep them safe. Ask you to be with the ones that are not able to be here that wanted to come today, Lord, the ones in the hospitals.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming today. We're going to try to make this a little brief today. My little speech here is just not going to be like a regular C.O.C meeting. It's kind of like a little town hall meeting. We have a bunch of important and powerful people here to speak to y'all today. I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. Hope y'all learn a few things, especially what the C.O.C is about, ABATE, and also the MRF. I'm going to let him get up here and talk a little bit about the MRF first.
Thanks, Juan. These kind of events and gatherings are so critical to our future, so thanks for taking the time to come out and be part of it. And hopefully some of the things you hear today, you can spread the gospel among your brothers and sisters more about what's going on and why we need to. We're going to be buying fuel. If we don't get this right, we're going to be buying fuel at a gallon. Okay? We're always going to have fossil fuel, right? Plastics, your cars, your clothes, your food. Rubber. Food containers, rubber, everything has fuel in it. But they don't have to turn it into gas if they don't want to. Or if the government tells them they can't. Okay? Frontline warriors like Mr. Higgins are vital to our survival. Okay? EPA. The EPA, when they turned their emissions regulations onto us in the mid-90s, it was really to get at our sound. Notice I didn't say noise, to get at our sound. That's what Tier 1 to Tier 2 is about. Now they're looking heavily at Tier 3. It's no longer about sound, it's about making the motorcyclists so hard to manufacture and so hard to meet the standards that you can't make them unless they're electric. Okay? Government's not our friend in this battle, folks. So it's for real. Okay? There's some other things going on in DC, fairly important, right? But what we do in the next decade is going to determine if we continue to ride, and certainly if our children, I have 3 kids, they all ride. How long will they be able to do that on a motorcycle of their choice? Okay? So, please, the Motorcycle Riders Foundation works with 49 of the 50 state motorcyclist rights organizations in the country. Louisiana is a strong one. Rick's on our board of directors at the MRF. Okay? We work very closely with confederations, coalitions, the NCOM, NCOC. Okay, we've been a guest speaker. In fact, I spoke at Shreveport, Gulfport, just last year, down here. Okay? So continue to support these organizations for things like I just told you. Okay? Critically important for our future that we continue to fight and know, right, be proud and know that Beta Louisiana and Louisiana C.O.C. and motorcyclist clubs, right, are critically important right on the front lines, right? When you look at every politician and every Louisianan politician in D.C. supported anti-profiling of motorcyclists. We got preservation of vehicle choice going on, coming out of Louisiana. Both Mr. Higgins and Mr. Johnson are sponsoring that, okay? It's our jobs. Our jobs collectively, MRF, SMROs, clubs, coalitions, confederations, all get together and make sure that we support that. And make sure every politician in DC hears that we want a choice. Because it's really simple, right, folks? Simple. There's a lot of complexity in motorcyclist rights, but it's really simple when you boil it down. I want to ride what I want, where I want, with who I want, when I want. That's it. That's not too much to ask, is it, Mr. Higgins?
No, sir.
There you go. Where I want, with whom I want, when I want, on what I want.
Yeah.
Appreciate your support. If you're interested in taking back some of the information I just shared, there's a white paper handout of everything going on in D.C. You can get involved and learn more about it, and certainly please support it. Thank you.
Next we have Rick. He's our state ABA president, and he's also our MRF state representative.
Hello, everybody. I want to tell y'all a quick story about how this came together. Okay, I was sitting, Jackie and I, together during the Bikers Inside the Beltway, which happens every May. We go to D.C. and we walk the halls of Congress, and we give out information on the MRF, the legislative agenda that MRF has. Okay, we go out to each one of our representatives. Like he said, we had 6 out of 6. We're 100%. We met 6 out of our 8 this year. But I'm sitting in Congressman Clay Higgins' office, and the door opened. We're through talking. We're just in there, just speaking back and forth. And his aide comes to the door, knocks on the door, and says, "Congressman, Swamp's on the phone." He goes, "You tell him I call him back." Right. So as soon as I got through with that, I made a phone call to Swamp's cell phone. I called Swamp's cell phone, and I said, "What are you doing interrupting my meeting?" And he said, "What meeting?" I said, "I'm standing here in Clay." So I had him on speaker by then. So now they're all talking back and forth. So that's how small the world is and how close we all have to work together to make things happen. So with that, he told me about setting up the revival and now it turned into the town hall. And so we talked to Swamp about that. And he said, "Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a ride." So I said, "Okay, let's do a ride." And he said, "We're doing it on the 29th of July." And I'm going, Jackie and I have to be in Oklahoma tonight. We've got another meeting in the morning. Okay, so we're riding from here to McAllister, Oklahoma for another meeting. So anyway, so with that, all that being said, I'm like Swamp said, and Hartel said, I'm on the board of directors as a state-sustaining motorcycle rights organization, MRF reps rep. Okay, so I am the one that the reps in the 50 states. We divide that between me and Dad, which is Dad's up north and I'm down south. It's not a southern and northern thing. But anyway, with that, Swamp says this is going to happen this day, so I put the thing out on to the MRF board of directors, and I said, "Hey, is anybody going to be in Louisiana on this time? Because Jackie and I are going to be in Oklahoma." And Jackie and I talked about it, and all of a sudden we said, "Well, we're going to do both." All right. So with that, was so short, and that I get a text message from Hardtail says, "I can do this." So Swamp wants me to come down and speak about MRF, and the president of the MRF is available to come here. So y'all don't hear anything about MRF from me except for one thing. We have MRF memberships available right here. We've got ABATE memberships available right here. But the other thing is the E15 fuel. E15 fuel has been approved. It is out there. Okay, there are several. They approved it just for the summer. Okay, they got a short deal for them to use E15 fuel. Those are not good for your bikes, your lawnmowers, your jet skis, your weed eaters, nothing. Okay, so be careful with what you use. Make sure we're pushing Congress now to label these pumps. They have to label the E15. Not only label them, they got to educate the public. They got to educate the public on what that means. Okay, so it's not. Just be careful. They do have a list. I will get that to Swamp, and we'll get that put on the ABATE or on the MRF state page. But I've got a list of the gas stations or fuel stations that have that in this area. So they're very few, but they do have it. So I've got a list of those, and I will get that out to him. But with that being said, I just want to tell you all that story about how this happened, and all of a sudden now we've got these two people in the same room together, and I'm honored to have ridden with Congressman Clay Higgins and his group today from Scott, Louisiana to here. We met at Cajun Harley-Davidson this morning at 9 o'clock and rode into here, and boy, it's hot. But anyway, it's getting that way. We're heading out of here tonight. Y'all remember that. Think about that. But let me go ahead and, all right. Thank you, guys.
Like Rick said, we have 3 of the most important organizations in this room right now. We have the C.O.C, ABATE, and MRF, and we also have Congressman Clay Higgins right here.
We can accomplish a lot of stuff if we all stick together and work together on all this stuff. But the main thing is that we need to work together with all these organizations and also with Congressman Higgins and other congressmen. And it's important that we work closely with ABATE. ABATE does a lot of our bills and stuff. The COC mainly just supports ABATE. ABATE does a lot of the groundwork and writing the bills and stuff for us. So if y'all ever have anything discrimination or profiling against y'all come see us and we'll get to work on it. And next we have Jackie with State ABATE. You want to say something?
All right, left one thing out. With the Bikers Inside the Beltway every year that MRF hosts, they also host the Meeting of the Minds. Okay, Meeting of the Minds this year is going to be in Hattiesburg, Pennsylvania. Harrisburg. Thank you. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So we will be there in September. We'll be in Springfield, Missouri in October for the Motorcycles Improving Legislative Effectiveness, which is a 6-state organization that does this. So, and I'm a vice chair for that organization. So with that, 2025, Louisiana will be honored to host the Meeting of the Minds for MRF, a national event. I'll talk to Swamp about it. We're going to go through some organizations. It's going to be held and sponsored by ABATE of Louisiana and the MRF. So it's going to cost us some money. So we are in the process right now. We're 3 years away. We're in the process right now. We've got 1/3 of what we need to make it happen. So if you see benefits and stuff that are going on in North Louisiana or South Louisiana, anywhere that says something about ABATE and MRF, that's what it's for, okay? This is not trying to raise money. We do that also. We raise money for other people, but that's what it is about. So please support that, and we'll talk to Swamp more about it later. All right, and here's Jackie.
There's a lot of people in there. My name is Jackie Lindsay. I am ABATE State Treasurer, Legislative Director, Share the Road Coordinator, MRF, Bossier Parish Chapter President, one of the MRF State Assistant Reps, and also State Rep for the Mid-South Mile. Yeah, but I'm retired, so I can. Now I can work. I don't know how many of y'all actually know a lot. I know you probably heard of ABATE, but I don't know if y'all actually know exactly what it is, what we do for you. So I wanted to take this opportunity to just take a few minutes and explain to you what it is, since we are your state's motorcycle rights organization. We fight every day for your rights. ABATE actually stands for American Bikers Active Towards Education. Well, that education kind of gets people, you know, because they think of school, they think of teachers. So I just want to let you know our education is in 3 tiers. We do teach students. We have a Share the Road program where we go in and we teach motorcycles do what they do on the road. The differences between vehicles and motorcycles. The laws that protect motorcycles against vehicles. And we do that, we give them an hour-long presentation every time they have a driver's ed course, and our main objective for that is so that none of those children sitting in that room ever have to say, I didn't see them. Okay? We want to make sure at least that group of young people is going to get out on the road, they're going to get behind the wheel, and they're going to keep their eyes out for motorcycles. Secondly, we educate the public. You know, many years, the media has put out this profile of what motorcycles, who they are, what they are. They're bad people. So we try to promote a better image of motorcyclists in our state. And so we educate the public. Lastly, but most importantly, we legislate our legislators. We go to Baton Rouge, we find legislators that are friendly to motorcyclists. We find issues that are important to motorcyclists, that sometimes motorcyclists are treated unfairly. Sometimes there's a disparity in the laws that concern motorcyclists. So we find legislators that will introduce a bill for us, and then if you're aware of the call to actions that we put out, thanks to the MRF, that's how we get y'all involved so that we can get these bills that are friendly to motorcyclists passed in Baton Rouge. So that is what we do. Just a few of our major accomplishments include providing this past year, providing penalties to drivers. How many people know someone that got run over or got turned left in front of and they got a failure to yield ticket? Well, that is no longer the law. We need your help to make sure that your local municipalities, your local law enforcement agencies, your prosecutors, your DAs, your judges know that there is now a law that states that when a motorist kills or maims a motorcyclist, there will be penalties to pay. We have taken the penalties from intersections, from yield and stop signs, and we have applied it to open road violations for motorcyclists. So that is a big deal, but we have to work to make sure that local law enforcement knows that. We were the third state in the nation, as Hartel said, to get the anti-profiling bill passed. And that actually passed through both houses of the legislature unanimously. So we got to give props to our legislators down in Baton Rouge. We got an exception added to the mask law where you're not allowed to disguise your face in public. Well, we got an exception added to that so that when motorcyclists wear bandanas or full face helmets and their faces are hidden, they are now exempt from that law. We also got a law passed that prohibits motorcycle-only checkpoints. You know, the federal government was trying to give grants to the states so that they would get a program put forward so that they could stop just motorcyclists. And the A-Beta Louisiana was able to get that passed so that they can no longer do that. They cannot do that. We have a few things next month. Actually in September at our meeting, we put out our legislative agenda for the next year, and we already have one representative, if reelected, that will reintroduce the malfunctioning light bill. Y'all may know about that as being the dead red bill, where if you go up to an intersection that has the sensors in the ground and it doesn't recognize the metal in your bike, you'll sit there forever because the light won't change. Well, we're going to introduce a bill so that after a certain period of time, after 2 rounds of that light, if no one's coming, if it's safe, you can treat that light as a stop sign and you can go through it. So you're no longer dependent on whether or not a vehicle comes up behind you. And at night that can be dangerous because sometimes these vehicles don't see those motorcyclists sitting at that light. So it's also a safety issue. We are going to try to continue on. Rep. Huval from St. Landry area has termed out. He will no longer be back. So we're going to work very hard to find a representative that will take up his wireless telecommunications bill. We need to get cell phones out of people's hands. That's what's killing motorcyclists. And I'm very happy to say that we actually have at least 2 or 3 representatives that have already shown interest in, depending on who we get for governor, but they have actually shown interest in introducing a freedom of choice helmet bill next year. I know a lot of y'all are very happy about that. We stopped working on it because John Bell Edwards said that if we did get it passed, he was going to veto it. So that's why there hasn't been any work done on that for the last couple of years. But John Bell is gone. So I'll close with this. I have sent out to all of the candidates so far I can find for this coming up October primary. We have a candidate questionnaire that has questions on there that are of interest to the motorcycling community, and we want to know what these candidates feel about all this. I've received half a dozen or more questionnaires back. The deadline for filing is August the 10th, so I will have a full list everyone in the state that is running for office. And I'm going to send those questionnaires out to every candidate. It'll have their district number, what they're running for, and be watching. I will post, starting after August 10th, I will be posting those questionnaires on the A Beta Louisiana Facebook page. So you can go and you can find your representative or your senator. I've even sent one to the gubernatorial candidates, lieutenant governor, secretary of state. All of them, they will be on that page so that you can see what their positions on the issues regarding motorcycles are. As Brick said, we've got some MRF trifolds down there, some ABATE trifolds. If you'd like to read more about who we are, what we do, there is also a registration on there to become a member. The MRF is only $35 a year. MRF is $35 a year, and it comes with a $4,500 accidental death and life insurance policy, accidental death and dismemberment insurance policy for free. A-Beta Louisiana is a measly $20 a year, $30 for a couple. It comes with $3,500 worth of free insurance, AD&D insurance. Please help us help you. We are both volunteer organizations. We run on memberships and donations. So please think about what we do for you. I hope that I have laid it out. If you have any questions, please come and ask me about it after the meeting. But we need your help to continue to help you. Thank you very much.
I'm Clay Higgins. I don't like career politicians and I don't trust the government. The gentleman mentioned losing our motorcycle. What they're doing in Europe. The hell with Europe. This is America. You have the First Amendment right to own a motorcycle. You have a Fourth Amendment right to keep it. And if the government threatens your First Amendment right to own a motorcycle and your Fourth Amendment right to keep it, they're going to find out why we have a Second Amendment. Swamp brought me a stool like I'm a rock star. Country music singer. Trust me, if you've been to the Redemption Y, you don't want me to start singing. Listen, I'm going to open the floor for questions very quickly, because that's what I want to get to. So let me just say, yeah, we're from various organizations and groups and clubs, but we stand beneath the glory of one flag. And we are bonded together by our patriotic spirit and our love for country. We have core principles. The American sitting next to you shares your principles. He may wear a different cut. He may be from a different city. He may hail of a different culture or creed or color. But he shares your principles, your core values, as do I. I make no apologies in the halls of power in D.C. for being a biker. In fact, I tell this den of thieves up there, worry about bikers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the safest building in Louisiana right now. Don't worry about bikers. Man, I met plenty of bikers that I trust with my life and very few attorneys. So, one of the things that we share in common, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're willing to fight for our families, our heritage, our land, our freedoms. We're willing to fight. If you're willing to fight, make some noise right now. So, we're clear about that. We have it in us. A lot of us here, veterans, maybe most. We're all patriots. We understand that freedom is to be preserved generation to generation, and if it's taken for granted, it will be lost. And we don't like what's happening in our country right now, the weaponization of the federal government against the citizens that it's supposed to serve. Some of us are at the point of that spear. In Washington, D.C., I serve as your congressman. It's not a job I asked for. God dragged me kicking and screaming into that job. But I serve the people that I have sworn to serve. I do not serve the interests of Washington, D.C. I don't even like nor trust those people.
That's right.
So, yeah, we're willing to fight. But if you're willing to fight, I want you to realize, I ask you to feel my spirit on this. You're sitting next to your brother in arms. If push comes to shove in this country, it's men like you and women like you that will stand and fight for this country. And all of a sudden, all of our colors ring red, white, and blue. And we stand as one. So I'm going to take you back in time for a minute. Imagine the early years of the 19th century. Not exactly sure when, between 1815 and 1820. A young man born into indentured servitude in Ireland, across the Atlantic. Indentured servitude, like slavery for white folk back in the day. You're born into it. This young man hears a whisper of a nation born where a man can have freedom and can own land and can establish his own destiny and future for his life, himself, and his family. This land called the United States of America. Think about how this news traveled across the world from the end of the Revolutionary War and the establishment of our republic. The writ of our Constitution passed by the original 13 colonies, and the United States of America was born. And how did we do that? Some of us, that's the blood that's in you. This is the blood that sometimes will flow from you. This is the blood that you're willing to commit. Some few of us were willing to take up arms against the world's most powerful army, the British Army. And America was born. So this whisper lands in the ears of a young Irish lad. And he wants some of that. So he changes his whole life. He saves his money, what little he can get, and he books passage on a sailing ship that's been converted from carrying cargo to carrying human beings. And literally, by the way the winds blew, his boat lands in New Orleans, Louisiana. That man was my ancestral forefather. We all have a story like this, every one of us. Whether we came here a free man, slave, or indentured servant, we have a shared heritage of an ancestral forefather, an ancestral foremother that came to this country seeking one thing: freedom. Freedom. This is why we draw the line when our freedoms are threatened. This is what overcomes every variance of background, culture, and creed, or where we stand on the economic strata, what political affiliation we have. All of that is set aside when we stand together as one against significant threat to our freedoms. And this is where we are right now. So, what did the founders give us that they did not have? What weapons do we wield now that they had not access to? Our founders fought with sword and musket to give birth to this country. But there was an anointed time. There were anointed men. We live in an anointed nation. The Lord himself touched those men and gave us the writ of our Constitution. We have weapons that we wield that they did not. That's Article 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution. I serve you in Article 1, your legislative branch. Article 2 is the executive branch, led by the President of the United States. I was just with Trump last week. That's my president. We're putting him back in the White House. That's Article 2, your executive branch. That's all the bureaucracy of the federal government that has grown into a leviathan that devours your wealth and stampedes your freedoms. There's Article 3. There's the federal judicial system, which is now run by conservatives. Article 3 changes not by election cycle, changes generationally. We're in the early years of a generation of a conservative Article 3 judicial system, court, your federal courts. So, my brothers and sisters, the persecution that you have felt is real. That you've been targeted because of who you are and what you believe is real. I stand with you against that oppression, but I'm telling you the tide is turning. We have indeed significant threat before us in our country. But we're at a crucial point. And if you allow me and men like me, patriots like me, to wield the weapons that the founders gave unto us, Articles 1, 2, and 3, then we'll fight this war with our last life's blood. But we'll fight peacefully and legally within the parameters of the Constitution with all our passion and all our focus. We'll overcome. And then, worst come to worst, if we have to meet at the bridge, we'll damn sure meet at the bridge. Oh, they don't want that. We don't want that. None of us want that. We want to go about our lives, live our lives, raise our family, ride our motorcycles, assemble peacefully how we choose. We want to work, we want to earn, we want to build for the next generation. We want to leave something for our children and grandchildren that maybe we didn't have. We just want to live free and be left the hell alone from the government. Yeah. Get out of our life. So, I guess I've made it clear that I'm a constitutionalist man. I'm a regular American man, a humble man. I've been beaten down by life and stood back up just like you. I've known hunger. I've known eviction. I've been turned down for car loans. I understand struggle. I know what it is to go home to my wife after a 2-week work and look at that check and know that we can maybe buy groceries or pay the rent, but we cannot do both. I understand these things. So, I'm going to open the floor for questions. I just wanted to establish the simple fact that we are brothers and sisters. We are bonded of spirit. And yes, we are threatened. But the man and the woman sitting next to you is a badass. And we ain't laying down. We ain't laying down. If you have individual concerns that I need to address as your congressman, please get in touch with my office. My district director is here. He's a guy with legs hanging from his shoulders. Where you at, Sho? Yeah, there he is. There's one of them legs up in there. It's combat veterans, my district director out of my Lafayette office. If you have individual concerns or issues that's appropriate for your congressional office to address, I don't care where you live in the state, contact my office, we will help you. These legislative issues, you put them in the done column. That's like small. We're about to have, I'm with Jeff Landry for governor, I don't know, you with. I respect whoever you're with, but Jeff is my brother, he stands with me, that means he stands with you. So we're about to have a solid man in the governor's mansion, and we'll get handled through Baton Rouge what we need handled. And in DC, I'm deep in your corner. I made a mistake, I guess I gave your attorney my cell phone number. We'll see what happens. Okay, if I can, I'd like to open the floor for questions. Any question at all? Somebody get us started. Yes, sir, in the middle. Stand up, brother.
Vote is important, economy, everything. But if we don't have the Republicans backing each other and making sure our vote counts, we don't have much. They've got to start, I've been watching y'all on TV, I've been watching everything.
Okay, so unity of the Republican conference. The conference is what is called the Republican Party members in the House of Representatives. We now have majority control. Let me say that some of those Republicans they're liberals, man. And I'm not going to where they are. They're gonna have to come to where I am. And I am a member of the Freedom Caucus, what's called the Freedom Caucus. Maybe you've heard of it. There's 38 of us. Out of 222 Republicans, there's 38 members of the Freedom Caucus. That's your most conservative, constitutionalist men and women in the House of Representatives. And we have successfully, good sir, we have successfully shifted the center of gravity of the Republican conference towards the right, which that's fine. But like the way the Republicans were acting the last time we were in the majority, when I first went to Congress, and then I was elected in 2016, so I was sworn in January 2017. So that was the 115th Congress. It means it was the 115th time Congress was assembled since the Constitution was ratified. And that Republican majority was run by Paul Ryan. So I worked with Paul Ryan. I tried. But there was like the center of gravity of the Republican conference at that time, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, was towards the left to an extent that I was not comfortable there. Yeah, listen, you got to think of the difference between constitutionalists versus establishment career politicians. That's much more important than Republican versus Democrat. Constitutionalists like me and my colleagues in the Freedom Caucus, we know we have to reduce the size and scope and power and oppressive capabilities of the federal government. It has gradually been established over the course of my generation. We're the ones that let this thing get ruined up there. So constitutionalists believe in reducing the ravenous appetite of that monster that we have created up there. And those of us in the Freedom Caucus over the course of 4 years, we started working hard when we lost a majority in the 2018 election cycle. And Madam Speaker Pelosi was back in charge, and we had Chuck Schumer over in the Senate. It was going to be a nightmare, man. But we knew we were going to take the majority again, because we knew what they were going to do. They were going to grow the government and grow the government and grow the government, and get us deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. So we knew that the pendulum would swing and Republicans would take the majority again. So we started working within the conference, within the Republican conference, and delivering the constitutionalist message to our own colleagues, our own Republican colleagues. And we started supporting candidates that had their mind right, that were themselves conservatives and constitutionalists. And we gradually got them elected to the point where last year we won the majority, and by that time the Freedom Caucus was largely, I'm telling you, in the driver's seat of the Republican conference. That doesn't mean we have everybody, and we have a very slim majority. We have 222 Republicans. You need 218 to pass a bill, to pass legislation. So we can only afford 4 defections, you see. So we're doing damn good. When you see Republicans passing a bill with 218, 219, 220, that's heavy lift work behind the scenes to get us there, because conservatives, Freedom Caucus guys, we are not voting for liberal crap. We are not, we're voting no. When you see me vote no, you can bet that bill was loaded with liberal woke crap. And even if it was brought to the floor by Republicans, if you see me and Freedom Caucus guys voting no, that means that some deal with the devil has been made where they got Democrats voting for that bill. And I'm not anti-Democrat. I'm a seventh, feel my spirit. I'm the 7th of 8 children. I got 6 sisters. I grew up saying, yes, ma'am. And I have several of my family members. My older brother, my only brother, is a Democrat, real liberal. But I love him and respect him. And we gather. We have debates and I win. So he's an attorney, by the way. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Higgins.
Yes, sir.
It seems that a lot of laws that we have to deal with is because government money is funneled in the state. And in order for the state to get this government money, they gotta oblige the government. How do we get that money out of here? Because Louisiana should be self-sustained. We got more natural gas, we got more oil. This should be a really rich state. And it's not. The politicians are robbing us blind. They're taxing us to death. And that the government money needs to stop feeding the politicians in this state, because that's how they're passing all these laws and stifling us. And I don't understand why Louisiana is not a booming state with all the natural gas, all the oil people we have, all the sugar cane we have. We got Gulf of Mexico, we got the port in New Iberia, we got the port in New Orleans.
Okay, let's talk about the potential economic prosperity of Louisiana and where we're headed, what's been happening for the last 8 years. So Louisiana is largely considered a deep red state, a Republican state, right? Well, we've had a Democrat governor now for 2 terms. And John Bell is a skilled politician. He knows exactly what to tell every group. He's one of those, that dude popped out the womb to be a politician.
I don't know anybody that voted for him.
He carries everybody. He won. But what happened is Republicans were divided, see? Republicans were divided in the last 2 gubernatorial elections. That's not happening again. We've been burned twice, but within our own party. And I want you to think about this. Think about this. Think about this. Who burned the Republican Party in the state of Louisiana? Establishment Republicans. These are the guys. You know, I found out quick when I went to Congress that I had no arrest authority. It bothered the hell out of me. And I already knew I wasn't in the Army no more. You can't just shoot somebody.
Well, you can. It's got to be a
No, you get it's really frowned upon if you did that. So anyway, I actually heard a man say, a Republican tell me, an establishment guy, because they try and win you over, see? And obviously, this guy didn't know much about me to be talking to me about being one of the establishment guys. Because he didn't get a real good reaction when he told me, he said, Clay, we have to to grow the government, and America's going down, but we can be better managers of the nation's decline. Think about that. This is the horror that I face up there. This is your establishment politicians. This is your career politicians. I strongly encourage all of you to be involved in your elections at the local, state, and federal level, and stop voting for these Republicans, but they're rhinos, they're Republicans in name only.
Right.
Look for constitutionalist values. Look for the guy that appears to have some fire in his belly. Look for the American that's going to stand on core principles. Look for the person that you can trust. You don't have to always agree with them. Wouldn't it be a boring world if we always agreed with each other? We're not even looking for that, man. As an American, we don't even expect to have elected officials that we always agree with. But we want to feel that the man is speaking from his heart. We want to feel he's being straight with us. And what has happened in Louisiana is we've elected John Bell twice. And John Bell brought what's referred to in industry as a toxic legal environment to Louisiana.
Amen.
So all these oil and gas companies have choices to make. The mainstream media like to talk about the big oil and gas companies, but most oil and gas industry is small companies. And when you talk about a small job, let's say call it a $10 million job, a $10 million hole in the ground. That's not a project that Exxon is going to touch, you understand, or Shell. There's small companies that do that, but if they have a choice to go to Texas, where they have a 4.5% severance tax, and they're almost guaranteed to not get sued,
Right.
or they put that same money into a hole in the ground in Louisiana, where they have a 12.5% severance tax, and they're almost guaranteed they're going to get sued. So where would you put your hole in the ground? You go to Texas or Oklahoma. You can steer away from Louisiana. This is why when the oil and gas, when we passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we have Trump in the White House, 2017, the oil and gas industry started booming in other states right next to us. Why did Louisiana not participate in that? Because we have a toxic legal environment in Louisiana. Business is pushed away. That switch about to be thrown, good sir. You can put a solid conservative man in the governor's mansion. You have Republicans that should be held to account in Baton Rouge, have a supermajority in the House and the Senate. It's like turning the light switch. Watch what happens next year to industry in Louisiana. We're about to rock and roll. Yes, sir.
Eric Bertolay with Bikers for Trump. I know the last few times you and I talked was impeachments of some of these Mayorkas and these other guys. What has happened with that? We're expecting a landslide of that happening. It seems.
Yes, sir. Okay, impeachment for Secretary Mayorkas is moving forward. There's a process. You're looking at the guy that has introduced the articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas at the Department of Homeland Security. I've given him ample opportunity to resign. I'm a gentleman. I'm from South Louisiana. You know, we have a tendency to say, hey, little brother, I'd rather buy you a beer than remove shit you need to breathe with. So, come on, take this beer, right? We are gentlemen, right? So, I didn't want to move forward with impeachment for Mayor because I wanted him to resign, but he did not. So, once we had the majority, I introduced my articles. I'm the senior Republican on the Homeland Security Committee. I'm the chairman of the Border Security Subcommittee. And I'm fifth in seniority on the Oversight Committee. There are 3 committees that will deal with the investigation for any impeachment. That's the Committee of Authority, in this case, the Homeland Security Committee, the Oversight Committee, who has oversight over all corruption in government, which if you're going to have an impeachment, you're looking into corruption or high crimes and misdemeanors. And then ultimately the Judiciary Committee, which takes up impeachment articles and passes them through that committee, and then it's brought to the House for a vote. And who runs the Judiciary Committee? Jim Jordan, my brother.
Yeah.
So impeachment for Mayorkas is moving forward. Impeachment for other secretaries like Garland should be impeached.
Yeah.
Man, Ray should be impeached. The FBI and the DOJ is out of control. I know you're listening, you bastards. Stay out of our lives. If you start a gunfight at my house, you can expect a gunfight.
That's it. Yep.
Oh, they heard it. Lima Charlie. So there's several secretaries that should be impeached. We don't have time. We're focused on the secretary that's been responsible for the arterial bleed that our nation is suffering. That's our border right now. You won't hear this number on the mainstream media. 9 million. You've had 9 million cross in 2.5 years.
Wow.
6 million known, 3 million unknown. Think about what I just said. 9 million. And listen, a lot of these people coming across, they don't have what we would call nefarious intent. Little families turning themselves in at the border, escaping whatever the hell they're escaping. But they're being waved in, they're being invited in. They're being lured in by the Biden administration and Biden policies. That's why you've had so many in 2.5 years. We had that shit under control with Trump, I'm telling you. It was down to a trickle. And then, we have compassion for those people, right? We're Christian principled men and women. We're a generous nation. We have compassion for people in a bind, coming on a journey, trying to escape whatever they're trying to escape, wanting to come to our country, have a better life. I got love for them. I'm a loving man, a compassionate man. But come here legally.
Right.
Yeah. Come here legally. Come in through the gate.
Right.
I got a fence around my house, and so do you. We got a fence not to tell our neighbors and people passing by to keep out. We have a fence to tell them to come in through the gate.
Yep.
I got a gate. I expect you to stand out till I get your attention. Or if you're a rich man like Mr. Bertelay over here, probably got one of them buzzers. The point is, we recognize that there's human, misery in the world. And we've always been a generous, compassionate nation. And we want to help everybody that we can help, but we can't help everybody all the time.
Right.
And we want people to come from every nation in the world. We want them to come here legally. So that's 5 million. That's 5 million have come here basically turning themselves in, but they're being waved in. They're weighing on your school system, your medical system. Our infrastructure can't handle it. If you've been down to Texas recently, it's real bad down there. We're losing our country down there. And you've had another 3 million cross. You've had 5 to 6 cross that have been paroled in. You're given a little piece of paper saying, hey, you can stay as long as you want while we consider over the next 5 or 10 years whether or not you qualify for asylum. And they can come into the country and live and work, etc. Then you got another 3 million that are called criminal runners. We call 1.5 million of them known. They're called gotaways. So those guys have a reason to be running from the law when they cross the border. Now they work for the cartels. The cartels traffic in drugs and money and human beings. Cash goes south. Human beings and drugs come north. They're carrying backpacks. They work for the cartel, so what do you think's in the backpack? You think they got jelly beans in there? I mean, it's a real problem at our border. So Mayorkas is being impeached, Mr. Bertelay. The President of the United States, listen, Joe Biden might get impeached. He might. But hear me now, feel me, I'm a constitutionalist. It's not always convenient to be a constitutionalist, but our founders intended for it to be almost impossible to impeach a sitting president. So the Democrats were not acting as constitutionalists when they attempted to impeach Trump twice.
That's right.
That was Nancy Pelosi and company in the House, but never went anywhere, did it? It was defeated. The system that the founders established in our Constitution did not allow that unconstitutional impeachment persecution of our president, did not allow it to move forward. So if you're asking yourself, well, why the hell, Higgins, why don't the Republicans, roll the way the Democrats do? Because we're not Democrats. I have core principles. And I am a constitutionalist. So to impeach the sitting president of the United States, he has committed impeachable acts. But the process for impeaching a sitting president is quite a heavy lift and requires extensive debate. And the bottom line is, we're already knocking on the door of 2024. We're going to get rid of that guy anyway. We're getting rid of Biden anyway. By the time we can move through impeachment, which should be painful for the country, for Biden, he'll be out anyway. I'm not even sure the Democrats are going to let him hang out. Because he can't win.
Would his replacement be worth the time?
Say again?
Would his replacement be worth the time?
Well, we don't know who the replacement will. I think the replacement is going to be by election.
Yeah, but
So,
we're saying if he was impeached, it'd be just as bad or worse.
Yes,
So
Harris,
it'd be worth it.
yeah, but listen, let me say that impeachment shouldn't be measured by who would take somebody's place. It should be measured within the parameters of the Constitution and our deepest core principles. So we're moving forward with impeachment for Mayorkas because the constitutional process for impeachment of a secretary is on a lower threshold than it is for impeachment for the president. So we're going after Mayorkas because he's the biggest problem in our country right now that's at a secretary level. And Biden, if it does move forward, impeachment for Biden, I'm going to support it. But that's not my focus. I'm the senior Republican on the Homeland Security Committee, the chairman of the Board of Security Subcommittee, and fifth in seniority on the Oversight Committee. I'm a patriot, constitutionalist, American man. I know my assigned role in this thing, and I'm going after the guy that's doing the most injury to our country. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm listening to what you say, and my question is, I work in Louisiana. I'm not from Louisiana, I work in Louisiana. Gentlemen say we want to stop money from water, which is great. But why, how come the wage is so low in Louisiana? That's part of the problem. People in the property level, and you will not prosper. Why? We talking about getting rid of government and all that stuff, that's great. But everybody got to eat. Why come property level is so low in Louisiana? That's something needs to be addressed. Across.
So I do apologize, good sir, but I have about 40% hearing loss, especially in my left ear. Most of you know why. But, and we had some bikes rolling. Would you condense your question to one sentence and tell me again?
Why property level is so low in Louisiana?
Property levels.
Poverty level.
The poverty level.
How can we bring that up?
One Louisiana citizen at a time, one Louisiana family at a time, one young Louisiana man or woman busting ass on a job at a time, one election cycle at a time. We're putting conservatives in charge in Baton Rouge, so they're not in your pocket and suing you at every turn and suing your company at every turn. Listen, I was a grown man. Let me tell you what the answer is not. Government handouts. That's right. The government handouts breeds weakness. Yep. And I do not support it. And I have my own charitable organization, I started it a long time ago. We help the homeless and veterans. That's what we do. That's my redemption ride, by the way. Y'all all invited. It's the last Saturday of October out at Cajun Hall in Lafayette. We raise money for my redemption organization, and all we do with that money that's funneled through there is to help the homeless and veterans. This was started way before I was in Congress. So my point is, all of us will give a man a hand up. All of us. We won't have a brother or sister go hungry. We'll help a family. If you know a family right now that needs groceries, we'll have groceries this afternoon. But don't ask me to ask the federal government to provide it or the state government to provide it. If in your church, one of your congregation members, the house burns down, and your pastor takes up a collection, says for the next 4 Sundays we're going to take a collection to help the Williams family, the house burned down. They're going to pass that collection plate, and we're going to put in there what we can, right? What the Spirit drives us to do. So let's say at the end of the 4 weeks, the church collects $10,000. How much of that $10,000, good sir, you think that family is going to receive from that church? 100%. 100%. They're going to get it all. Your church is going to give it all. Am I right? Yes. That's right. Now, let's say there was a Federal Department of Tithing, Disbursement, Equity, and Inclusion. And it was a federal law that money that was collected by your church to go to the Williams family whose house burned down, they got $10,000, they got to send it to D.C. And then it gets filtered back to Louisiana and Baton Rouge, where it gets dispersed back to some other little organization that'll deliver a little check to the Williams family. First of all, it's going to take 1.5 years. Secondly, guess how much they'll get? This is a real number. Out of every dollar, they're going to get 38 cents. 38 cents. The government burns 62 cents of every dollar we send them on bureaucracy. So don't ask me to support more bureaucracy. I oppose it. I fight it with my last life's blood. I oppose it. That money should stay here in our communities, in our families, dispersed by our charities and our churches and our organizations, including our biker organizations, our riding groups, and our motorcycle clubs that do more for our communities than anybody out of Baton Rouge or Washington, D.C. I didn't mean to shut down questions. The gentleman and then the gentleman. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious to know what's being done to secure our elections.
Secure election. So, listen, this is a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
The election, I don't want to get into weeds here, but in a representative republic that has federal elections conducted at one time, there's an election day, right? You still have 50 sovereign states that make up our republic for our federalist society. And we have one federal government, one Congress, one House of Representatives, one Senate, one president. And your federal elections take place on even years. They're the foundation of our representative republic. But any one sovereign state can mess up the formula. So what happened in November of 2020 is you had 6 sovereign states that appeared to be, by the time, the sun had set on the following day, and some of us were stunned at what we had witnessed in the wee hours of the morning. Something happened after they closed down these elections, this counting, and they said, we're not counting anymore tonight. That was at like 1 o'clock in the morning Central, so different times across the country, but they say they're gonna stop counting. Stop counting? When do we ever stop counting? Sir, you got some gray hair in your head. You ever heard of them stop counting an election? It just didn't happen, but they did. So we said, okay, they're gonna stop counting. That was in 6 states. More pointedly, it was in 6 counties of 6 states, and those 6 counties were urban counties. They were heavy Democrat-centric counties. So, on the one hand, you can expect that when you have Democrats been running things for 50 years anywhere, the system's gonna be messed up.
Yep.
So, you can expect that in a heavy election turnout, maybe they had some problems here or there. But when we started seeing identical problems at the exact same time in 6 different sovereign states, coming out of 6 counties in those sovereign states, it started to look coordinated. And I indeed believe it was. So, listen, that bell has rung. Some of us stood up in Congress and fulfilled our constitutional oath to challenge the electoral slate of those 6 states. And I stood up in Congress on that January the 6th, 6 times, and objected to the electoral slates of those states. Why? Because that's the constitutional process. That's the narrow window that the founders gave us to object to the seating of an electoral slate if we believe that there was some corruption behind the election that delivered that electoral slate. So it was the opposite of an insurrection. It was very American and 100% constitutionalist, deeply core principled and courageous. But those colleagues of mine, I hesitate to say myself, I was just doing my job and following my spirit. But it took courage to stand on that day and challenge those electoral slates, and I did. So election integrity is a problem nationwide. But it's only a problem in some sovereign states. Like, we have to keep our head wrapped around this in Louisiana, but Louisiana doesn't really have problems. Why? Because we have photo ID. Some common sense stuff. We have photo ID, and you only get a mail-in ballot if you ask for it, or if you draw Social Security or SSI, or if you're deployed in the military, or if you ask for it. This is some common sense, right?
Yep.
So Louisiana has basic foundational systems set up for our elections where we don't have a problem. But some of these other states, it's like they've rigged the game, man. They do not require a photo ID. You can already see problems.
Yeah.
They do mail-in ballots to every registered voter at every known address. Sometimes they send them 2 or 3 times. So you got millions and millions of ballots just laying around in mailboxes, showing up at your house, and the person it's addressed to don't even live there, but the only place has a name on the ballot is on the envelope. So the ballot that you received in your mailbox, you got 2 or 3 of them for people that, for your apartment or whatever, that used to live there. You pull out the ballots, and those ballots in some communities, in some states, those ballots are worth money. You can trade a handful of those ballots for a rock in the right year at the right time. So we have a problem nationwide, but it must be fixed by the sovereign states. I do not support the federalization of our elections, and I encourage you to oppose that very strongly. That's a bad direction. You don't want the next wave of Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's in charge of your elections process nationwide. If that ever happens, then it's time to meet at the bridge.
Yep.
Okay? But in the meantime, the sovereign states, you should be encouraged by the following, sir, and I'll close. Since November 2020, 46 of the 50 sovereign states, including this one, have either passed legislation that strengthens their election controls, the parameters of their elections in some way, or they've debated that legislation heavily in their state legislatures, and there's been a heightened awareness of the problem of election integrity. So the problem's not over, and it's got to be addressed state by state, but it is being addressed state by state and community by community. Who was the other gentleman that I had noted? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Tony Renero. I'm with CMA here in Alexandria. And my question concerns the national rights to carry bills, reciprocity bills for concealed carry. I know when I ride my motorcycle and I go through different states, if I get stopped, I'm going to jail. Because I can't do like my car, I can have my pistol in the trunk, my magazine in the glove compartment, and my ammo in a side compartment somewhere else. On a motorcycle, I can get a hold of everything. I guarantee if I hit a place like New Jersey, I'm going to jail.
Yeah, I support constitutional carry nationwide.
That's it.
And you should too. So, let me tell you this. Most states have reciprocity where we ride. You have reciprocity. The problem is, you do have segments of law enforcement here and there that they profile bikers. So the issues that you face, sir, riding your motorcycles is not the same as your neighbor who's driving an F-150. You both have the same rights. You both pay the same taxes. You both pledge allegiance to the same flag. You both roll the same highways, but you're perceived differently by some law enforcement organizations, or even within law enforcement organizations, some officers or deputies or troopers. That's a reality that we have to be a united voice against that kind of outrageous behavior. I stand opposing. Most of y'all know I was a cop for a long time. I was a SWAT cop for 12 years. I never violated anybody's rights. Showtown was on a lot of those missions with me. He'll tell you. I made damn sure that that on any operation that I was involved in, people's civil rights were recognized and observed. And these other politicians can say what they want about me, and they do. But when they accuse me of stuff in law enforcement past, it's a lie. It's a lie, 100%. So reciprocity for your Second Amendment right to carry, if you're legal within your state, you do have a legal stance in other states, even where that don't have reciprocity agreements with your state, because of the interstate system. So you do have like complicated legal rights, if the attorney would agree or disagree. You do have complicated legal rights. The problem is accessing those rights, because it's expensive. It's expensive. So if any of you run into issues with the ATF or anything like that, any kind of targeted persecution or Second Amendment issues, we have several cases right now, don't we, Showtime? Yeah, we work them. We work them. If you contact us, you have a problem with the ATF, trust me, I got huge problems with the ATF, the FBI, the DOJ. A bunch of these guys need some real bit in their mouth, as we used to say in the horse business. And they're getting it. I'll go as long as they want me to. But but I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time. And you're certainly not gonna hurt my feelings if you roll out while I'm answering questions. Trust me, you won't be the first. So, but I'll answer questions as long as you all want to ask me questions. Yes, sir.
My name's David Mons, and I'm with Hope Bush's Motorcycle Ministry. And my question is, where are we at on constitutional carry in this state?
In this state,
This state.
that should pass next year.
Sweet.
Should pass next year. You get the right guy in the governor's mansion, and you know, I'm trying not to be political, but I'm just answering questions. You ask a question, to me, the right guy is a guy that understands us, and that guy is Jeff Lane. Just saying, vote how you want, vote your conscience, vote your heart, go to bended knee, seek a righteous position, then go in the booth and vote how you feel is right for whoever that is. And by the way, Sean Wilson is my friend. You understand? I've worked through a whole lot of, how many things have we worked through with Sean Wilson Showtime? He's over there handling something. But Sean Wilson, the head of DOT, I can call him right now and answer the phone. Yeah, I'm no enemy of any of these men or women. Sharon Hewitt is my friend. John Schroeder is my friend. Yeah, I'm not against any of these guys. I'm just telling you that I'm with Jeff. We put a guy like that in the governor's mansion and push on these Republicans. Be careful in your local elections. Don't just vote for a Republican because he's a Republican. You got to ask him questions, man. You have to ask some constitutionalist questions. Some of these people that become a Republican because in their district that's the only way they can get elected, but you ask them their voting history and they voted for Obama, Clinton, Biden, and then they changed the Republican Party to run for state rep or something. That's not right, man. We welcome them in the party, but they don't get to be an elected leader just as a matter of convenience for them. And I hope that answers your question regarding constitutional carry. Yes, sir.
Mr. Appreciate you coming out. Better speed told the Captain President. I'm not for sure you're aware of this or not, but there is a group of guys that is running the Highway 165 area that supposedly their badges say Federal Gang Special Task Force. And they are pulling bikers over.
Already don't like them.
Sir?
Already don't like them.
Yeah. They're pulling bikers over, no calls, no traffic violation, no nothing, just because we have cuts on our back. They pull them over and tell them, well, who are you? We want to know who you are. Well, we got license people back in motorcycles. That ain't necessarily going to tell you who you are, but I just didn't know if you was aware of the fact that this is happening in our state.
I'm not familiar with that particular task force. I am familiar with that. The Biden administration has used executive authority to put grant money through the DOJ to make it available to local law enforcement and state law enforcement to run task force operations on the government dime, the federal government paying them through the grant, paying them overtime, in order to target conservatives, or in this case, bikers. So this is an unrighteous, unconstitutional abuse of executive authority. And this is the kind of thing that I stand against. This is, and here's what I'm gonna ask you to keep in mind, folks. When you have an executive that's violating his constitutional authority, you don't change the constitutional authority, you change the executive. Did we do this? The founders gave this in cycles, 2 and 4 year cycles. So you have an election cycle, where you remove that abusive authority, elected authority. And how do you fight it in the meantime is through Article 3. This is the purpose of our federal courts, as envisioned by the founders, is to challenge in court, legally and peacefully, violations of your constitutional rights and freedoms. So I would say that that law enforcement has no legal authority to delay or detain an American citizen without probable cause. So I would challenge the legality in court of a stop like that. And I say this with all due respect to everybody involved. But if you're going to play the game like that on the street, then you can expect to be challenged in the court. And I would hope that the organizations would encourage representation to deal with that kind of targeted persecution.
I don't mean to interrupt you. We do have a program and a process in that situation. Next time they do it, contact the C.O.C., get all the information you have about it, the time, officer's name, all that information, and we're gonna hand it over to our attorney, and that's go. Yeah. We have a system to handle that already, and that
There
goes.
you go. You got an attorney. And am I right, sir? Basically, that we could challenge that legally. Is that correct?
You've got rights, and we're here to enforce your rights. So the Confederation of Clubs, income, they have dollars to pay because it's not free to litigate. Okay? Now, I'm not worried about attorney's fees on these kind of cases, but it costs money to pay to file a suit, to pay court reporters to take depositions, et cetera, et cetera. So if y'all want to get involved in litigation, every time I didn't want to interrupt him, but at the conclusion of every C.O.C. meeting, I talk and I say, let me see a show of hands if anybody's having problems with law enforcement in your neighborhood. That's what I'm here for. You got to tell me. And you got to stay on me, okay? You got to follow up. Just talking to me one time at the conclusion of a meeting, that's not it. That's no way to have your doctor. You talk to your doctor one time and your disease isn't cured. You got to get involved in treatment.
This just happened this past week. It wasn't me, but the thing I ain't figured out yet is it says Federal Game Special Task Force.
Well, what you saw was they had patches, which, these guys are being filmed at all times. They got cameras in their cars, and litigation is heavy with law enforcement. They're all wearing body cams. So patches are commonly worn for not necessarily the need at the moment, but the need to identify down the line when you have litigation. You have to be able to say, well, who was with this task force, who was not, etc. So
you have to get evidence.
let me just say that you have rights, and I
bullets for
encourage
my
you to
gun.
stand for those rights.
So me and you walking in the courtroom are going to lose. We got to have evidence. Give me some bullets in my gun, and then we can win.
Man said bullets for the gun. I didn't say it. Yes, ma'am.
So because these supposed patches say federal, does that give them the power to supersede state law?
Yes and no. It gives them the power to operate within the parameters of the law that they have jurisdictional authority to execute.
And
So if they have
what gives them jurisdictional authority when they're
the jurisdiction that they're working and the commission that they carry. So if I did work all the time with the federal marshals. They'd use our SWAT team. I was a SWAT guy for 12 years. So I went on many federal missions. Do you understand that I had authority because they were operating, the federal government was operating in our jurisdictional authority. And they needed help. So they would draw upon our team. So this the way things work with law enforcement. This task force deal is a whole nother, that's like an unrighteous use of the law to target and persecute. I completely oppose that kind of stuff. There's an operation right now, beware, many Americans falling in this trap. The Biden administration put money out through the DOJ to local law enforcement to go dig through gun stores' files and look through the forms to see if they recognize, as local law enforcement, recognize someone that had purchased a gun legally at the store and filled out the form, said no, never been convicted of a felony. And so the Biden administration, in the effort to ramp up the numbers of what they could claim the statistics are for the what's the percentage of time people lie to go into a gun store and buy a gun. But the Biden administration knows that what they're doing is they're abusing that executive authority to pursue such a law enforcement endeavor. They're taking advantage of the simple fact that most Americans believe that if you were convicted of something, 20 years ago, you had it expunged from your record, you can go to a gun store and buy a gun, and you can. And maybe you bought 20 guns in there, checking the box no, and nobody's ever said anything, because the way you kind of understood it, the way it was conveyed to you, was that congratulations, your record's been expunged, it's no longer on your record, etc. Well, what that means is it's not on your records for like civilian review, but it is on your records for the law enforcement system and the judicial system. So technically, if you go into a gun store and check no, never been convicted of a felony, to buy a gun, even if you bought 20 guns at the same gun store over the course of 30 years, and whatever you were convicted of was 40 years ago, man, long been expunged. Technically, you're in violation of a federal code by checking no on that box. What you're supposed to do is check yes, then you're not in compliance, and then the gun dealer says, I'm sorry, you're not in compliance, I got to refer you to the local ATF field office. Then you got to go to the local ATF field office, bring your documentation of your expungement, sit down for an interview, and then you'll get like a personal clearance from the ATF field agent, maybe, to go buy your gun. But in reality, this is targeted persecution where law enforcement authority and executive authority is being abused to go after Americans who are simply living within the parameters of the Second Amendment rights to go into a store and buy a gun legally. And those guys are getting arrested. You'd be as shocked. I promise you, it's out wherever you live, there's a law enforcement agency either participating in that or thinking about it, because they're luring them with money. The Biden administration is baiting these local law enforcement entities with money. Yes, sir. I'm going to say after this we have one more question. Is that fair? I'm trying to respect everybody's time. People got rides to make, and your attorney needs to speak, etc. Yes, sir.
Where I live, in the last 10 years, they 4-laned the highway through the town. Well, when it was a 2-lane, we had a red light in a particular spot. And now that it's 4-lane, it is an extremely dangerous situation. I drive a log truck, and you're just trying to find a gap you can fit in to get across that 4-lane highway. And the town has tried different people twice. They've had the DOT come in twice to put their sensors on the road. And both times they didn't meet the criteria to get a red light there. And basically the last time what they were told was somebody is going to have to die in this intersection to get something done.
Well, I hear you, but fatalities at intersections are not the way that it's not the formula that the state uses to determine whether or not there's gonna be a light. It's traffic count strictly and delays. Now, my advice to every American citizen is drive. Well, yeah, you contact Baton Rouge. But what I'm telling you is, don't risk yourself and your family over a red light, man. This is still America in some corners of the country.
Yeah.
You know, protect yourself and your family. If you're a sitting duck at a red light and it's safe for you to go. Roll, man. You won't get fussed out by me. I might give you a medal.
Well,
And so you need, if you need a light, you gotta stay on it with your state rep and your state senator. And like, we're getting work done on the state highway right now, down in Abbeville area. Because it was such a loud voice from the community, and the state wouldn't do anything, and I got involved, my office got involved, and you know, we started kicking on some doors, and we got a little federal money pushed to the state with some encouragement. We're getting some things done regarding lighting, etc. in a dangerous part of the highway down there. Some of you are familiar. But this all has to go through the state, because it's, even on a federal highway, it's state responsibility to maintain that and to determine the traffic. On state roads going through municipalities, it's 100% the state. The municipality has no control. What the speed limit is, whether or not there's a light, it's all determined by Baton Rouge. So stay on your state rep and your state senator. Last question, out of respect for your time and your riding, and I'm gonna say this the last question. Do we have a lady with a question? You're a handsome fella, but you're no lady. The gentleman that rode, he's riding from Tennessee today?
Yes, sir. Last night.
Roger that. Gentleman rode in from Tennessee to be with us today.
I was going to ask in regards to the attorney, you might be able to answer it. As a non-ABATE member, well, does a person have to become a member of ABATE in order to reap the benefits of being able to call an attorney when after being pulled over wrongfully, like the situation you were talking about?
We encourage membership, but I suspect the answer is no.
I'm probably going to join, but I wanted to know if it was for members only, kind of like NRA attorneys or.
Yes, sir. It's a good question.
First of all, you should join ABATE. I'm going to make some comments about that. It does cost you a few nickels, but it's not so much that it's going to be any kind of impediment to join. What you also should join is the AIM program. Everybody in this room should join. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. You get a card to carry in your wallet or put with your bike registration. 1-800-ON-A-BIKE. You can call that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've got an operator. We'll put you in touch with the local AIM attorney. I'm the Louisiana counsel for the AIM organization, as well as for INCOM, the Confederation of Clubs. So also when you join AIM, you fill out all your personal medical information, your blood type, any allergies you got, anything. So if something happens and you go down, and you've got this thing right next to your driver's license, the EMTs will see the AIM card. They'll call your family and let them know that you went down and what hospital they brought you to. Because I got to tell you, far too many times I've seen people with amputations that didn't have to happen because this orthopedic surgeon didn't want to spend the next 23 hours reconstructing that leg, and he just took it off. So your family can prevent that from happening. They can make sure they stabilize you and transfer you to a major trauma center and save your limb. So to answer your question, you can have a lawyer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter what state. Listen.
As a member or a non-member?
If you join the AIM program.
I'm interested in joining.
So listen, if I'm in Daytona or at Sturgis and I get in trouble with law enforcement, I'm a lost ball in high weeds. If it has something southeast Louisiana, I got it handled. I'm connected. but not if I'm out of town. So I'll call 1-800 on a bike. Me, I do, if I need legal help.
Yeah, that's free. Free.
Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you one and all. Thank you for being you. I'm humbled to serve you. I'm at your avail. My offices are fully staffed and we work 24/7, man. The phones don't stop. People's needs and their conflicts with the federal government doesn't stop on weekends and holidays, and neither do we. You reach my office in DC or Lafayette or Lake Charles. If you need to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me directly. But we serve you and we're humbled to do so. I have a very optimistic spirit, and I believe in the future of our country. And I understand that it requires battle. And we are at war with powers and principalities that oppose our anointed nation and threaten the sanctity of our future for our children and grandchildren. I am honored to be your brother, and I'm very appreciative that I was allowed to address you today. I thank Swamp for setting it up, and my brother, who's gonna say no to that guy anyway? You know? So I wish you safety and peace and love in your home, and I encourage you to be the American patriot that you are, and know that you're not alone. You certainly have a congressional servant in me, and deeper than that, you have a man that if that horrid day should ever come, where we have to perform as our founders did and meet at a bridge, I'll be there. But we don't have to go there, ladies and gentlemen. We can still save our country legally and peacefully within the parameters of the Constitution. Have faith in our Lord and Savior, and be focused on this vision for our future, and elect the right people at the local, state, and federal level, and we can save this thing. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Briefly give you guys some closing remarks. First of all, thanks to Swamp and Hardtail and Brick and Jackie and Representative Higgins for everything they do for all of us, okay? But who really needs to get thanks is all of you guys and all of your brothers and sisters sitting next to you, and the ones who couldn't be here today but are also supporting all of us, because we all do have targets on our back. We all do have common interests that we need to work hard to protect. And don't just rely upon ABATE to do things for us all. Let's do it ourselves, okay? We can do it in Louisiana, especially with the level of cooperation we have with this C.O.C. When I meet nationwide, you guys have a reputation. Everybody is totally impressed and jealous of the amount of participation we have going on in Louisiana with you guys. You need to be proud of yourselves. And case in point, where we should be next, just a couple of months ago, Nebraska became the 33rd state to pass a law affording freedom of choice for adults to have the right to wear a helmet or not. So, join ABATE, work with ABATE, but do your own work too as well. All right. One of the important things that we do is we look at, like the motorcycle rights foundations and all the motorcycle rights groups do, we get what's going on in Europe, because it's coming here maybe, right? We talked about some of that stuff. Well, here's one that'll freak you out. Spain has a target pilot program. We've all seen red light cameras, speeding cameras. How about stop signs? In Spain, they got stop signs that will ticket you for not coming to a complete stop at a stop sign. And if you get a rolling stop, you're getting a ticket. And my wife's daily commute to work every day is on a Vespa scooter. And when she's gotten traffic tickets, red light tickets, because she didn't put her foot down, when she came to the stoplight to take a right, and she goes to that perfect equipoise that we know about, where we know the bike's not gonna fall, and it went through, she gets a ticket. So, first of all, I recommend it to everybody, put your foot down when you go through stop signs, just because you got a target on your back, right? But second of all, and I'm gonna tell you how this is real in Spain. I just came back from Spain. So, two things freaked me out. First of all, I'm in a parking garage, and I pull up at the kiosk little thing to pay with my credit card. How much do I owe? The machine knew how much I owed just by pulling up to it, because it saw my license plate when I drove in. Wait, worse than that. We go to a big department store. My wife goes on a shopping spree. She comes up at their self-register, kind of like at Costco and all. You check your own stuff out with the little scanner. You don't do nothing. She walked up there with a handful of clothes and says, you owe this much money, without doing a thing. So, Big Brother's here, baby.
Yep.
All right. If anybody have any problems other than what we've already heard about from law enforcement in your neighborhood? All right, we're here for you. So, oh wait, my last thing I always have to say. Please buy UM insurance, please. Louisiana's only got $15,000 worth of liability insurance. It breaks my heart the number of times I've seen clients with the leg off and catastrophic injuries, and they got no coverage. Buy some UM, please.
Everybody leave, going home today, take your time, make sure you get hydrated and do what you need to do. There's a lot of stuff going around on what we can and what we can't do when we get pulled over. You've seen it. There's a lot of, I call them, I guess the best word would be barracks lawyers. I have another word for it, on the internet. And they're telling you to do this and do that and do that. If you got a question, call him. Call him. You know, we'll answer it. If you don't know what to do, or you have no idea what to do, get one of these things, put it in your pocket, okay? I got pulled over, I got a copy of my driver's license, I got a copy of my registration, I got all that crap right here. Plus I got my card that goes, yes, officer, how can I, you know, I'm not gonna answer any questions, okay? Watch what you're doing out there. Don't start a conversation because you know Jerry from the pool hall. Because Jerry is going to talk to you to get you to do what he needs to do in his rights, okay? Fine line, but stay cordial, stay friendly, and answer what's legal. And if you got an idea what's legal, call him. Call him, okay? Don't take anything on the internet for granted, and please don't become a damn sovereign citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Louisiana, it is an ID state. You have to show your ID. And when they stop you, be cordial with them, be polite with them. You know, if they start asking where you coming from, where you going, you know, officer did not wish to discuss my day today. I'm having a, you know, I wish to proceed on my way. Why you stop me? He's got a certain amount of time that he has to write your ticket or let you go. And the next question is, am I being detained or am I free to go? If he says you're free to go, go. If he says you're being detained, vote your right to remain silent. Then don't forget to vote your right to remain silent. You have to say it. You can't just shut up and not say anything. You have to say, I invoke my right to remain silent. Don't consent to any kind of searches. You don't know who's been in your car before you or any of that. Don't consent to a search. And take the ticket and get on your way. And once he says you're free to go, go. Or when you open up your mouth again, he can detain you again for another length of time on the side of the road.
There were a couple of points of clarification I wanted to make about earlier questions. First of all, who was it that asked about how come Louisiana doesn't have any money? We got all this oil and gas. Is he still here? Okay, well, just for the room, okay? Why does Texas have so much money and we don't? because Texas was a sovereign, independent nation when it joined the United States of America, and they owned all their oil and gas. Okay? Louisiana was bought and paid for from Napoleon and France. So the United States owns all our oil and gas. So we don't get the royalties that Texas gets, and that's why we got the damn severance tax. We got to get money somewhere. Okay? The other question was, how do I get a traffic light put up? Because they said that we don't have enough traffic. Well, what you need to do is organize, hire an expert who's an expert is on your team. Okay? There's a book called the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, that all these experts use. And what they have in this thing is may and shall. So maybe it's not shall have a traffic light here, but it's may, and that'll be evidence that your expert can use to convince them to give yourself a traffic light.
Anybody has any other questions? Next meeting, September 24th. Right, Lionel?
Oh, I don't know.
I've been listening to everybody.
September 24th, 1 o'clock over here. And if anybody wants to volunteer to cook, get with Lionel and let him know. He's on top of all this
Hey,
stuff.
it may be 80 degrees by then. We can hope.
We normally have it on the last Sunday of the second, every other month, but this time, Congressman Clay, he couldn't, he's gotta be somewhere else tomorrow. So we bumped it up a day. So it's gonna be on the 24th, September. And that's it. Well, I guess we'll see y'all later. Y'all be safe, gone, and thanks for coming.